There are a lot of animals on Earth, and sometimes the survival of one is based on the demise of another. But when it comes to our pets, that's not what we want to hear. This python twisted around a mama dog, and seconds later, the unimaginable happened. The mother dog was completely focused on keeping her puppies safe from the massive snake in front of them. Keeping all three of them safe was almost impossible. The puppies ran all over, and she jumped in front of them as far as she could. She was completely focused on her pups when the python lunged. It grabbed her and started to twist around the mama dog while her humans were inside the house. The python started to squeeze and hold on. Her time was running out. She couldn't bark. She could barely breathe. Did the dog understand how close she was to death? If she didn't make it, she would leave a huge hole in her family. She was loved as much as any other member of the family. When Anna and Pieter took over the family farm, they found that their old family dog wouldn't be enough to guard their new, huge property in South Africa. That's why they decided to get another German Shepherd dog. The new pup was named Brurus. He grew strong, surrounded by the love that Anna and Pieter poured into his training, and developed a firm bond with his family, especially with Pieter. Brurus followed him everywhere. He was sweet, but his behavior made Anna nervous. The older dog passed away soon after the puppy's arrival, which meant she was left all alone when Brurus and Pieter were out on the farm. It could be scary since Anna didn't grow up on a farm. There was nothing like a night in the African bush. No street lamps in sight near their home. The darkness could be thick, not to mention the ominous presence of some particular animals like the jackals with their unsettling cries in the night. It could be something magical to experience, but it might be scary if you're out there on your own. Sometimes Pieter stayed overnight, and it freaked Anna out. Knowing this, Pieter came up with an idea. He returned home and asked Anna to grab a few things from the pickup truck. It was a strange request, but she didn't think much of it and went out. In the passenger seat, she saw a little female German Shepherd waiting for her. The puppy wiggled and licked her face as soon as Anna picked her up. Anna was charmed, and so was Brurus. They called the pup Coco. The two dogs instantly became best friends, but one day everything changed in the most tragic way imaginable. By the time Coco was 3 years old, they had fallen into a nice rhythm. Brurus still went out with Pieter, but Coco stayed glued to Anna. One day, Pieter came back from the field and asked where Brurus was. Anna hadn't seen the dog all day. She thought he had left with Pieter. That's when panic set in. They both knew something was wrong right away. All day, Coco had been nervous and on edge. Anna closed her in the house because she kept barking and trying to run off. Anna and Pieter were worried. They had to figure out how long it had been since they last saw the dog. It was shocking to realize the last time was early in the morning when he first went out. He always went out before Coco, who liked to snooze later. Not going with him might have been a fatal mistake. They couldn't believe they hadn't noticed the dog was missing. Minutes later, it was going to get so much worse. When they took Coco out on a leash, they hoped she would lead them to Brurus. But they didn't want her getting away from them if there was any danger around. They had to be careful. The dog barked as she started to rush toward the bush. She rushed, and the couple followed along the dirt path just beyond the house. There they saw something that made them feel sick. The snake that slithered through must have been massive, but that wasn't the thing that got their attention. It was what was next to the snake track that was horrifying. Tufts of dog hair lay next to the snake track. Black and brown pieces of fur were scattered all over, and in it there was some blood. Something terrible had happened there. Then Coco cried softly. Anna and Pieter knew the dog had realized it too. They weren't going to find Brurus. It was dark, and they wouldn't be able to do anything more that night. Heartbroken, they all headed back home. Pieter was furious. He couldn't sleep, and at first light, he went out to search for the snake. There was nothing to do for Brurus. However, they didn't want a massive snake so close to the house. They also had a chicken coop in their yard, and they thought it would be too vulnerable if the situation slipped out of control again. Pieter searched everywhere without results. After having such a terrible and large lunch the previous day, they expected to spot the snake quickly, but they couldn't find it. They saw the tracks, but then it went into the thick grass, and the trail disappeared. It was like the snake had been picked up and moved. The snake was gone. They kept searching for days, but it had vanished. It stayed missing for months. Wherever it was hiding, it wasn't gone completely. Winter arrived, and the snake probably found a cozy place to sleep through the colder months. Back at home, Anna and Pieter were sad and felt guilty. Even Coco seemed out of sorts. She was sleepier than usual and napped more than normal. She was even picking up weight because she wasn't as active as she usually was, or so they thought, until Anna realized something amazing. Coco was pregnant. She was going to have Brurus's puppies. It would be like having a small part of him back. They just had to make sure the puppies stayed safe and that Coco remained healthy. They made sure she stayed close to the house for months, and nothing scary happened. They also kept a close eye on Coco. It would be devastating to lose her or any of the puppies. Everything was planned out. They would take her to the vet a day or two before the delivery, and the vet could take care of her through birth. But puppies, just like babies, don't wait for other people's timelines. One night, when the couple came home from dinner, Coco was napping in her bed. Only she wasn't alone. 2 tiny puppies lay next to her. Anna and Pieter were shocked. Then Coco stood up again and started to pace. They grabbed the puppies to make sure she didn't trample them, and soon her 3rd puppy was born. She licked him, but he didn't move. Pieter picked him up and gently rubbed him on his chest. He blew onto the tiny puppy's nose, and suddenly the puppy was breathing. Pieter placed him back next to Coco, and she settled down and fed her 3 puppies. It was adorable. The little boy they almost lost looked so much like Brutus as a puppy. It was bittersweet. For a few months, the family and their pets lived without too much drama. The puppies were a joy, and having them around was a lot of fun. The family had time to heal from the loss of Brutus. Sadly, that feeling wasn't going to last too long. Danger was still a lot closer than they could imagine. By the time spring arrived, the puppies were bigger, and they could play outside. Coco was a great mom, and she made sure the puppies didn't stray too far. They kept them in a playpen most of the time, but now they could run free. They should have been safe, but living in the African bush, even sticking close to home, could be dangerous. Pieter had fenced the house, making sure the dogs couldn't run into the bush on their own, but that wasn't going to help on this particular day. Coco was focused on keeping the puppies all together while they were playing in the yard. Then, a sound or smell alerted her to something strange going on. Before she knew it, the puppies were almost on top of a massive python. She jumped in front of them, trying to protect them, but the puppies were still so young and curious that they didn't realize they were in great danger. They tried to get closer to inspect the snake. Each time one of them got closer, Coco jumped in front of them and tried to keep them away from the snake. Keeping track of all 3 and keeping them out of danger was not easy. She was focused on them and didn't see the snake starting to move. Then the snake lunged. If Coco had been watching herself, she might have been able to dodge it. Then again, this was likely the same snake that took Brutus, so who knows what could have happened. Before she knew it, it was wrapped around her, twisting tight. Anna was in the house when she heard Coco bark. She was just on her way to check when the dog suddenly stopped. She thought that meant everything was fine. What she didn't know was that the dog had stopped barking because the air was being squeezed out of her. Pieter was out in his workshop and didn't see it. If either of them had checked the live cameras, they might have known the danger their dog was in. But they didn't. Coco was at the mercy of the snake. She couldn't bark and could barely take a breath. Was this going to be the end? Was this snake going to make the 3 puppies orphans? The python twisted around the mama dog, and seconds later, the unimaginable happened. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, the 3 puppies began to bark furiously. They even tried to bite the snake, but they didn't make much of an impression. All they did was anger the snake, causing it to bite down harder on poor Coco, ensuring it held on to its prey. It pulled tighter and clung to her. The puppies couldn't help much, but their furious barking caught Anna's attention in the house. They had never sounded so angry before, and not hearing Coco anymore suddenly scared her. Anna couldn't believe what she was seeing. Right in front of her, Coco was being crushed by one of the biggest pythons Anna had ever seen. The three puppies were next to her, watching their mama being crushed. Anna quickly grabbed them and put them in a nearby puppy crate. The last thing she needed was for them to get hurt. She screamed for Pieter again, and he finally came running. Anna's desperate screams told him all he needed to know. She was terrified, and when Pieter saw the massive python around their dog, he understood why. They both knew that this snake was likely responsible for the loss of their beloved Brurus. Determined not to lose another dog to this python, they took the vinegar and poured some over the snake's mouth. They knew it might hurt Coco and burn her wound, but survival was more important at that moment. Tasting the vinegar, the snake stopped biting down and loosened its grip on Coco's body, trying to get away from the unpleasant taste. This gave Pieter and Anna a chance to get their hands between the snake and the German shepherd. They started at its tail, as that is the weakest part of a python and the best place to begin unwrapping it. Carefully, they began to unwind it from Coco, while also holding on to its head to prevent it from biting down again. Soon, Coco was free. They didn't know how much damage had been done or how much of her body had been crushed inside, but as soon as she was freed from the snake, she began to breathe deeply and whimper. She was still alive after all. While Pieter still held the snake, Anna ran to grab a big bucket. It would have been easy to take revenge on the creature, considering it had already cost them one dog, and they didn't yet know if Coco would make it. But Pieter and Anna were people who lived close to nature, and they knew that the python was just a wild animal trying to survive. They wouldn't kill it out of revenge, but they also didn't want it anywhere near the house, where it could find easy prey in return. They put holes in the bucket lid and later took the python to a snake shelter, where it would be cared for and live in a massive enclosure. It wouldn't pose a threat to their pets or livestock ever again. But first, they had to get Coco to the vet. They secured the puppies inside the house and then rushed Coco to the clinic. She was awake and alert, but in pain. The snake could have broken her bones or crushed her organs, and they also needed to make sure the bite didn't get infected. While a python isn't venomous, its bite can still cause infection. The vet gave her a scan and found that she had a few broken ribs, but Coco was incredibly lucky. If her puppies hadn't tried to protect her and alert the humans, things could have turned out very differently. They made sure the puppies didn't climb on their mama for a few days, and they kept her wounds clean. Before they knew it, Coco was doing much better. She was safe, and the puppies were too. Pieter and Anna decided to keep all three puppies. They had plenty of space for all four dogs to enjoy. The male pup they had saved at birth grew up to live up to his dad's legacy, building just as strong a bond with Pieter as Brutus once had. The family stayed together. As for the snake, it was released into a massive natural enclosure, where it could live freely without posing any danger to the farm or other nearby properties. It was best for everyone. Would you have been as kind to the snake? Thanks for watching. Join us again for more incredible stories that will inspire you.